What's good? Hello, everybody. Joey J. Ping here, checking in live, man. RespectMyRegion.com. We're back with another episode of the Michigan Cannabis Podcast. Officially, I think this is the 5th episode, but I didn't go look on YouTube, so we're going to have to potentially edit that out of this or later on or however that works. But the point is we're like 5 or 6, maybe even 7 episodes into covering Michigan cannabis brands. I've got my co-host, the crazy Kyle Van Artzen up here in the top. He's got some good questions prepared for our guests today, which are very special. They're former student, and current cannabis business owners, entrepreneurs, and these guys are. We've got Alex Ekman there on the left. He's in the tan hoodie, and then we've got Jackson over there in the white hat. Fellas, welcome to the show. How are you guys living today?
Doing good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Doing very well. Just got out of the lab, running some samples today, actually.
Let's go. A little science, a little chemistry. My favorite part, a little R&D, hopefully. Right?
But a little bit more of the senior research project for me today, but definitely.
Oh, you're talking school labs. You're talking school labs. Okay, man's putting in work to get the education. I love it.
Up at the university a little bit earlier.
That's dope. Well, this is exciting, fellas. I really appreciate you guys for joining. We're going to be talking science and school. We're going to talk about what you were studying, Alex, and how this all translates and correlates into the cannabis company. Before we get into all that, though, I've got to shout out our sponsor, Infinite Chemical Analysis Labs, InfiniteCAL for short. These guys are what we would describe as the premier option for potency testing, pesticides, heavy metals, terpenes, R&D, you name it. They care the most about the science out of all the labs that we found across the country. They care about accurate dosing, and more important than all that, they care about consumer safety. And so for anybody there in Michigan, if you guys are interested in learning more about what's going on, what products are safe, I recommend you guys tapping in with the Michigan for Safe Cannabis Coalition, learning more about what brands are safe to try, what brands are safe in clearing. Recently, there was a very large audit that happened on a very large number of vape brands, and many of the companies and brands did not pass, should not have been on the shelf. It was a very interesting audit and data to read. And so we really appreciate what our partners do in that regard. Now, Kyle, how are you? What's new? Where you been lately? I know you got your event coming up. What's the latest in the world of KVA, bro? What's good?
Yeah, appreciate you. Boys, it's really good to have you guys on here. Speaking of my event, these guys drove all the way down from the Upper Peninsula for my first one. And still, that means a lot to me. I appreciate the enthusiasm and the effort and the 5 hours of driving that you guys put in.
It was a fun road trip.
Yeah, it was cool. And I like you guys shot the content out of it. And we got another one coming up next week that I know I'm going to see Alex at. Schedule is lined up perfectly for me to see at that one again. So, yeah, May 15 is the day of the next Catalyst event at Start Garden, 6 to 9 p.m. And we're stoked. We've got some really good speakers on this panel as well. And I'm really excited to get some new faces in the room and see some familiar faces as well.
Kyle, you've been making moves, man. You've been traveling across the country doing the day job and Roll Pros, and then you got this podcast with us now. We've been doing a show or two every month. You got your own event series going on. Man, moving and shaking, hustling and bustling, my guy. I'd like to see it. This is dope.
Growing up right in front of your eyes, man.
Come on, but right in front of everybody and taking this along for the journey. And that's what's exciting about this whole cannabis thing is the journey, right? And coming together and whether it's, school and how that does it. You guys probably don't know this, but we started Respect My Region in college. We were those guys at 19 years old, 18 years old, throwing concerts, selling our clothes. It was $10 for the guys and free for the girls kind of environment, but we just wanted to have a community where you could enjoy and dance, and it was always about weed and all that kind of stuff back then for us. And so it's always been about just bringing people together at the core focus, and here we are today. And so Alex, Jackson, thank you guys again. We really appreciate it. My first question for you guys is, tell me what you guys have going on, man. You guys have this house of brands you guys have been working on. You guys have both been in school. And so how did this all come about? Tell me why you chose the name of your company. How did this all come to life? What are you guys working on over there, man?
Yeah, so Higher State Brands really actually started back in like 2019. The lab I was managing down in Detroit had shut down at the time, just due to zoning issues, and figured I had worked for a couple different companies, helped scale a couple different early caregiver brands. Why not try to start my own thing? So I tried to basically do a craft cannabis company that was really early in the market and just wasn't able to get the capital started. Uh, and I remembered the degree program up at Lake State. Some ads were going around saying, get your bachelor's degree in cannabis chemistry. And I kind of knew that cannabis is where I wanted to be in long term. And this was a perfect opportunity to kind of double down. So shot up there in May of 2020 and just kind of put higher state on hold. Kind of fast forward to late 2023, was working for a local grow that was trying to come into the town, and they hadn't paid me in like 4 or 5 months just from mismanagement of funds. So I said, screw it. If I'm going to build a third brand, it'll be for myself. So recruited basically the 4 or 5 close friends that I had up here at the university, pitched them the idea. Jackson saw the dream, and we really kind of put our heads together on what it would look like to build a craft cannabis company up here. And around this time last year, we were starting to walk properties and kind of put together prices and stuff like that. Around December of last year, we kind of saw the writing on the wall that between cannabis investment funds and macroeconomic factors, there's everything going on, that we weren't going to be able to kind of scrap together all the funds that we needed to do it right. And that being a 4,000 plant cannabis grow and processing lab. So we did a little pivot and kind of shifted into developing R&D for drinks, and then also developing some tech. It was kind of some ideas that we had for more like year 3 to 5 down the road, but we figured it'd be a little bit cheaper, and there's certainly a need for it in the market right now. So why not go ahead and put our knowledge and skills to use, try and make something happen.
Yeah, it's funny. When he came up here to the university in 2020, I was actually raided by the police 2 months after he had decided to come here, and I was on probation my whole senior year of high school, and then ended up getting all my charges dropped about a week before I came up here.
Wow.
And I really just took this chance as a second opportunity at life, and so I got involved very early and often, and that's how I met Alex. And he kind of saw I had that go-getter mindset, so we just kind of started building things together with university partnerships, and then now that led to higher state, and we're just pedal to the metal, trying to do anything we can to get to market in the best way.
Pedal to the metal's no joke. I mean, between higher state and school in the fall semester, we were clocking 140-hour weeks every single week, like minimum. And it was a grind, but it was worth it. I mean, it's definitely, it's pretty far so
Talking
far.
about lifting heavy weights, boys. Wow, those are numbers that most people can't even put up in a month.
Yeah,
It was crazy. It was certainly a time.
Yeah, the hustle is real when you're building it, and especially when you're in the early phase and building the idea out and getting the actual product creation, right? It's development, it's iterations, it's strategizing, it's planning it out, and then it's trying to get it brought to actual life. And I think that's something that those iterations takes a lot of time. And because if you just are happy with the first one, is it really the best it could be? Is it really
Right.
as stable as the science might require? Is the business really set up to succeed from like a retail standpoint? And the relationships and the brand building elements that are involved there. There's a lot of variables that go into there. Kyle, why don't you hit him with one of your goodies? What you got?
Well, first off, Lake Superior State. Like, what inspired you guys to go there? I know they were sort of early into launching a cannabis chemistry program. Did that kind of lead you into why you decided to go there?
Yeah, so for me personally, I knew I wanted to get involved in the cannabis industry, but I wasn't sure how. And being under 21, I couldn't just go work for someone, or really, I was in Minnesota at the time, and where it was illegal, so I couldn't really start anything up there. And I found I found Lake Superior State University because they had both the bachelor's in cannabis business and a bachelor's in cannabis chemistry. So I doubled down and decided to do both because I knew I wanted to get involved in the business aspect, but I thought I needed to learn the plant from the molecular level up. And that's kind of why I chose.
Yeah,
that level of science can definitely give you a leg up, because there's this balance of managing finances and the books and the accounts receivables, and understanding the plant elements and what goes into maximizing plant potential, and how that correlates to trim and extraction, and all the way down to residual cannabinoids in your extraction. All that kind of stuff plays into the efficacy of your product, and also the efficiency within your brand, your business, and cash flow, and all that kind of stuff. So I applaud you for taking the science side of it, but also the business science of that as well, because those elements, they technically go hand in hand. Otherwise, you're going to have to hire more people, right?
Thank you. Yeah, and I appreciate that. With the cannabis chemistry degree, we were just joking the other day that it's basically also an engineering degree with how much you kind of have to do and figure out, and all the math that's involved with it.
It's important to have a hybrid mindset, I think, especially as kind of that upper level in the business, and really allowing the business and chemistry side to come through is really important, not leaning too far on one or the other. It's something I preach on LinkedIn all the time. It's just having that hybrid entrepreneur business mindset, but also heavy on the chemistry as well. And that's like one of the big reasons I shot up there, is I felt like I had kind of learned everything I could on the YouTube university side when it comes to cannabis growing. Or my thing was really extraction, running extraction labs downstate. Like, I knew exactly what valves to open when and kind of what was going on, but I wanted to really get a good underlying theory of what was happening. And then, just how to optimize that.
Oh,
Man, tech
One moment.
snipped us. Yeah, the tech got us here. Now they're
All right,
back.
we're back.
Probably the fastest return ever.
Yeah, that was a quick one.
Well, one question that I wanted to follow up with on that too is, what do you think is in Michigan's cannabis workforce is missing? Is what Lake Superior State is doing is kind of filling that gap? Is it educating these operators a bit more so they can come in and be more effective employee or operator?
And that's like one of the reasons why we really wanted to partner with the universities. So maybe I didn't do a good job of explaining this before, but we actually gave the dean 1.5% of the company to partner with us when we were doing that original cultivation and processing lab, because we knew that there's no grows within an hour to an hour and a half of us. We've got a nice community, basically, of skilled labor that's eager to get into the cannabis labor force, but really outside of a couple dispensaries in the area, they don't have the option to. And so Lake State, partnering with them, we know that we've got these skilled, knowledgeable, trained potential interns or future hires, but they're also doing novel research and research projects that we can put to use. And some of them even get published in peer-reviewed papers. But really, it's just putting out a tried and true educated workforce. Like, I can't tell you how many times I still go into a dispensary and get asked if I want indica, sativa, or based on the highest THC percent, and kind of like these old notions of days past cannabis. And the Lake State program is kind of pumping out that next generation of cannabis operators and entrepreneurs, workers, everything.
That, and I think that the program does a good job of continuing education. They highlight that, like, the studies and the research is still being done, so while they will give us the basic chemistry level, we will still have to further explore because the science is still being done. Like, we had terpenes as a very major discussion point in some of our early cannabis chemistry classes, and now we had that article or the study from Abstracts Tech discussing how flavonoids are actually the major aroma factor in the plants. And
to even kind of double down on that, InfiniteCAL is one of the labs that is working on, and I believe it's already out through CRA now, doing the synthetic cannabinoid testing. And that's something that in one of our labs we actually got to do. It was kind of like a propose your own study, and we worked with the professor to actually do that type of conversions and look for potentially fingerprints, essentially, that we could use to identify if it was a synthetically converted or natural distillate product. And sure enough, we did find those. And so it's like that kind of novel procedure still hasn't been developed or fine-tuned yet. We're able to kind of get our hands on the early development of it, or even help out with it in some cases. And I think that's worth more than even just kind of learning the basics, or, instead of learning how to market indica sativa flower, you're actually in there developing novel methods for analytics, or looking for stuff that we didn't know was in the plant before.
No, it's obviously hard, bud tender day 0 actually negative because it was the training leading up to the opening. Like those 2 weeks, 3 weeks of training for us when I first got started, which is not the way for everybody. The first thing we were taught is that cannabis is different for everybody, right? Because we all have our own system, and all blah 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 blah, all the other stuff, right? We've heard it a million times, right? But to make it consistent across numbers does help us to project or predict to some degree some form of consistent likelihood, right? Like the likelihood of it can happen. Like we have it consistent. There's a good likelihood that this will happen, but of course, cannabis is different for everybody, right? And it's like that core foundation is where we all started. With you guys studying, at the university there, and you guys are doing it in a time that's definitely after where my generation had access to cannabis, which is just the streets. And now there's been legal since 2015, 16, legally in a bunch of states, 14 for places like Colorado, I think. Cannabis is different for all these different areas. What has it been like for you guys being students going through these cannabis programs? Like, coming from legacy markets where, you felt like you couldn't really learn more from this physical / anecdotal experiential side of it. Do these universities actually provide framework that fills in gaps, like of areas that you're missing within your real life experiences?
I think so. I had worked probably 3 years in the industry beforehand and tried to teach myself everything I could. I mean, I remember I had a notebook this thick full of notes from GrowTube Roundtable or for Growly, all those early, YouTube cannabis accounts, and just try to learn as much as I could. But it certainly got capped out. Like uh, taking the traditional general chemistry or organic chemistry, med chemistry classes, the analytical chemistry, really kind of filling in those gaps. And it's one thing to kind of know, okay, if I open this valve on the hydrocarbon, this is going to happen. But at a molecular level, what's going on, having that extra level of understanding, I think just makes things flow so much smoother in operation.
I would imagine it helps a lot in the problem solving element too, because problems and variables are always changing in science, and especially with, like, we'll call it geographic conditions and things, and business conditions as well. So I would imagine that just being able to spot problems and identify and solve them.
Well, when you say business conditions, that's a good valid point, because we actually use some of the studies that came out of the university or preliminary data to drive business strategy. So last year I was working on a study, and we're finishing it up now, that was presenting evidence of microplastics leaching in vape carts. So as a business owner, I strategically didn't even invest any time into looking what infrastructure costs would be like for vape carts, or to put a wipe film in when we were pricing out that processing lab, because I knew out of the 30 vape cart samples that I had, all 30 of them failed for either microplastics, heavy metals, or silicates, which is like a glass fiber. So I knew that I wasn't convinced that the vape cart hardware manufacturers could supply me a safe product, which I was then going to put out to my consumers. So there's no point in investing time, money, and infrastructure in white film or vape cart hardware. And that was simply from preliminary data that we got at the university.
Isn't it interesting how each state's laws, legislations, rule makers, how they fell on these numbers and percentages of acceptable amounts of these different things you're talking about?
Yeah.
It's acceptable up until here.
Yep.
Silicates, heavy metals, pesticides, whatever it is, right? Like there's this weird, like, okay, it's okay until this magical point, and then after that, right? It's a fail, right?
Yeah.
So interesting. Now, but yeah, that provides good insights. Kyle, what you got for him? I know you got a couple more.
Well, I know you guys are seeing the Michigan cannabis culture change and people outside. Like, what are some of the things inside of this state that maybe from outside the state that they might not know? I know you guys really tapped in at Hash Bash that you guys attended and really got to connect with a lot of the ground floor grassroots people. But if you could share a little bit, maybe for people that are on the outside looking in, what are those things in Michigan that stand out the most?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I personally enjoy a lot about the Michigan market is the uncapped licenses. And there's a lot of discussion right now with trying to put a moratorium on new licenses. And I know Alex has some very strong opinions on this,
Hot
but
take, let's go.
you really don't. You shouldn't restrict the business because it's hurting the consumers at the end of the day. And maybe the businesses that are cutting corners are also hurting the consumers, but that's on the regulatory body and the Michigan State Police to check those businesses. And I'm a big fan of the unannounced inspections, not really so much the 24/7 surveillance camera that they might be able to tap into based on this new rule hearing that just happened 2 days ago, but I think that the moratorium on licenses is very silly because it's not promoting innovation. It's protecting the bigger operators that aren't able to compete, really.
So like my thing with the moratorium is I wasn't able to get my license in 2019 because I couldn't raise the capital, and there was like minimum capital asset that you needed to have liquid, all the stipulations that made it hard for me to get licensed in 2019. That forced me to get a little bit more creative. And what did I do? I bounced up. Now I'm equipped with a degree, and the people that I met up here, I'm a little bit more dangerous now as an entrepreneur or operator than I was in 2019 and before. So if you're gonna say now that there's a new moratorium on licensing, like we have to make competition not a thing for these businesses that are kind of failing at their own cost, sure, I'll just get more creative to find a way into the industry, and I'll just put you out of fucking business down the road.
On my way to get
Yeah,
up.
yeah, like you're just gonna make a more powerful force. Good luck playing that moratorium game. It's just not gonna work. You can't stifle innovation or free market forces. It never has worked out good unless you're trying to create an oligarchy, which I'm pretty sure is the quite opposite of what cannabis in general has been pushing for, especially when these same people that are calling for the moratorium are very anti-big corporate cannabis takeover, and they're trying to do that same fucking shit themselves to, you know, the ex-trappers trying to live the licensed dream myself. Like, you're going to force us to get more creative to find a way into this industry, and it's not going to end up well for you.
Yeah, I mean, there's unfortunately these different markets, they turn to moratoriums when they realize that they don't want to issue more licenses because the market is not trending in the positive direction, right? And it came down, a lot of it comes down to the overtaxation elements and just how that's set up federally and then also state by state. It's a very compressed, stifling environment in all the different markets, undoubtedly. And yeah, I mean, they're obviously not singling out any one group, but I think to some extent the moratoriums make sense, and then to some extent it's like, yo, people that fail at business, they got to fail and they got to bounce out, and that license got to become available to somebody else or whatever it is. In Seattle, where I'm at, you know, I was just reading a story. I think I mentioned it on another episode the other day about one of the cities I used to live in and how they had a moratorium and all the 26 licenses are gone. There's literally not a single open one in that whole entire city because they all there became too many at one point. The market started crashing. They closed them all down, didn't let new ones pop up, and now it's just there's not even empty lots. Just it's the shells of what used to be a dispensary, and now it's a pizza this or some kind of coffee spot that or whatever. And so it's sad. Imperfect situation. Should be interesting to see how that plays out, and obviously with you guys, hopefully, I think there is opportunity for you guys to get creative and find a good home or a good partner for licensed opportunities. There's plenty of people out there with licenses and all that, and they definitely don't all know what they're doing. And with your guys' expertise now, and having filled in the gaps as you were mentioning, it sounds like you guys are a serious force to add value to any group. And so, with that said, have you guys launched a website for the brands and that kind of stuff yet? Where can people reach out and learn more about what you guys are working on, or does that exist yet for y'all on the interwebs?
So no website right now. We do have LinkedIn or Instagram is probably the best way to get a hold of us.
Mhm.
The website will be coming soon though.
Yeah, LinkedIn's probably the best to get a hold of us right now.
And what are you guys working towards right now? If people were to work with you guys on a product, or if you guys were to add value to a team, what would that potentially look like, or what type of company or business might that make sense for y'all for?
Yeah, so we're doing kind of two things as a house of brands notion. I'm kind of taking the lead on a tech development side just because we see a lot of open opportunity between merging AI and then augmented reality as well. So we're working on a little bit of software and app development, and then Jackson's taking the lead on some white labeling for drinks. I can let him talk about it a little bit more, but I think that on the supplement side, that's definitely an interesting.
Yeah, I think in terms of how we can provide value to other teams is we're really looking for partners to get these products out there, and we're willing to put the legwork in as long as we can really just get something on the shelf ultimately. So we need a producer and a manufacturer, and then we want to work with these people to bring these new and innovative products to market. And some of those products might be something along the lines of a protein drink or a protein powder, and focusing more specifically on recovery or just general effects. And I think that's a mark missed by most cannabis businesses, is they put the cannabis first rather than the effect first.
I need this, guys. I get this at Costco.
Yep.
I need this, the fruits and greens.
Mm-hmm.
I need
Well,
that CBD.
and that's what we've kind of asked ourselves is like, why is there not a post-workout recovery drink that's medicated, loads of CBD, CBG for the anti-inflammation, and instead of being like, we kind of looked at the energy drink segment when that came out, and you didn't have coffee companies saying, come buy our super coffee drink that's extra caffeine. They just pioneered a new segment, and I think early cannabis drinks, they're kind of doing this, look at our cannabis company, now drink our cannabis drink, instead of saying, hey, we're a drink company that just happens to use cannabis as an ingredient. And that's kind of the approach that we're looking to take.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you guys can create effect-based beverages, and whether it's cannabis or other adaptogens or
Yep.
nootropics, however that works, you're able to craft something that's intentional and effect-based, based on your passion and problems you want to solve. I think that's dope. Circling back to our sponsor, InfiniteCAL, their work on synthetic cannabinoids, their work helping to maintain safe products and the consumer safety there. You guys being there in school, Jackson, you doing R&D and trying to get some white label products going. How important and also how difficult is accuracy in these infused products on the beverage side? My understanding is that it's not easy to get these emulsions down and the balance of flavor and the quantity of liquid. And so for you, seeing as how you're not one of these 45 to 60-year-old beverage makers that's been doing it in other whatever, and then been secretly doing weed drinks for a while. Like you're a young entrepreneur. What has it been like for you learning that? Where are you at today? Can you describe the importance of that work you're doing there?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So I think having accurate products is number one. And if you are an emulsion provider, or if you are trying to sell CBD, CBG, CBN, water soluble powder, it has to actually be what you're advertising. And I won't name any names, but we've had some samples get sent that with like work on the matrix a little bit more, the fluid dynamics, and just get everything down in terms of how we want it to feel as well, rather than just what what are we putting in this drink?
And speaking of the matrix, like Vertosa's done studies showing that the can liner choice can absorb cannabinoids. So even just what you're putting it in the bottle choice, the liner of that bottle, all those little tiny interactions are stuff that people don't really think about that certainly need to be, because you're absorbing cannabinoids into your can, you're definitely not getting an accurate dose.
Yeah, that's interesting to think about. Is
I think
the importance of the packaging element,
we're
the
still
bottling
at this
element
point because we're trying to bring newer things to the market. We really haven't seen a protein drink at all on the market, and that's something that we're both very passionate about, and we really want to bring a recovery focused drink to the market.
That's dope, fellas. That's dope. It's gonna be an exciting journey for you guys to
In
create that.
contact at every point.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely.
Did we lose you?
Am I a little laggy?
No, I think it's Alex and Jackson over there because their things are not. It's all good. Yeah, it's all good, fellas. I appreciate your time, man. You know, we made it all the way through the episode without having major problems in 10 hours. So it's been a great conversation. Really appreciate your guys' time and sharing the insights, man. The Michigan market is unique. It has its own problems. It's outselling many other states in a lot of different categories. People there consume a lot of weed, and it's safe to say that they want access to safe products that's consistently dosed. And it's cool to see the universities they're taking a part of your industry and having impact on you guys. And it's exciting to hear, and it's inspiring to hear that it's actually been valuable for you guys. I think that's what's super cool is you guys are a part of this new generation. You guys are also a part of this other generation of legacy and trapping, and that'll always exist. And we're obviously a little younger than our elders that have been doing it for decades, right? But we all participate in our own ways. It's cool to see you, Alex, take on these challenges head on and get creative and strategize and go learn and get your game up and figure out how to still continue solving these problems and being valuable to the space. And Jackson, it seems like you love, getting nitty gritty with the extraction side of things, and that you also too enjoy, this R&D project, this process and the business elements to it. And I look forward to both of you guys growing in this. And of course, if anybody's watching this that has interest in creating beverages or, maybe figuring out some business efficiencies and things like that, these two gentlemen clearly looking to build something for themselves that's spectacular. And Kyle, you got any last questions for him before we get him out of here?
Yeah, we touched on a lot of things that you guys did to get here, but I'm curious, and I'd like you guys to share where do you guys see Higher State Brands in year 1 and maybe year 5?
Oh, year 1. So I think we've kind of got year 1 in the books already. If we're going to go a year forward, it'd be nice to have the apps, at least one of them out and running. I think we've got a couple really cool ideas that we're working on. One right now is a AI-driven pest monitoring app with some sticky traps and some kind of innovation going on that side. But as well, get a white label deal with the drinks rolling. And that would allow us to bootstrap early funding so that at year 5, we do have that processing lab and cultivation located right down the street from the grow. Can actually get some interns in there, pumping out some research and really trying to grow this into a brand that's almost like a Skunk Works Labs of cannabis, pumping out research, positioning ourselves for a large multi-state operator, almost like roll-up or M&A deal. And that's at least my vision.
Yeah, I think the next year looking forward, it's my last year in university as well, so I'll be going from finishing my research project and definitely trying to get some products on the shelf and in the app store, as well as year 5, I would like to be the ones kind of guiding the senior research projects at this university. And
Cool.
Like Alex said, being the Skunk Works lab, but more focusing on efficiency and operations and trying to leverage that to make the whole industry better.
I love it, man. That was, I guess, phenomenal and inspiring, and it's cool to see you guys, still clearly having so much passion for what you're doing, right? And I look forward to connecting with you guys over time. Kyle, thank you again for your time and co-hosting the show with me. Everybody, this was we believe the 5th official episode of the Michigan Cannabis Podcast. I'll have to go double check, but we appreciate all you guys for watching. It's been fun. Alex, thank you again. Jackson, it's been a pleasure. Thank you guys as well. Everybody, please be sure to check out Infinite Chemical Analysis Labs, InfiniteCAL.com, the go-to resource in 2 states for testing regarding R&D, pesticides, heavy metals, potency, terpenes, consumer safety. These guys are leading the way, and we're proud to have them as our partner. So thank you, InfiniteCAL, for sponsoring this episode and empowering us to have these 2 students and future business owners, entrepreneurs, brand leaders in the space. We appreciate y'all, everybody.